Welcome back to the Champion Forum podcast. I am your host and your biggest fan, Jeff Hancher, and I'm on a relentless mission to help other leaders lead, inspire, and win in this life. I'm very excited to have a guest on today that has been there and has a lot to offer regarding maximizing our fullest potential. He's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and a 10-year veteran serving as a commissioned officer in the Navy SEALs. He has led and served in extreme environments all around the world. He's a father of 2 young boys. He's a speaker, he's a coach, and he's a successful business owner. As an entrepreneur in leadership development, team performance, and tactical planning, he applies lessons from these experiences to transform decision-making, reinvigorate company cultures, and improve team performance. Larry Yatch, welcome to the show, and thank you for your service first and foremost.
Yeah, it's my honor to both be of service and be on the show. And just, I'm taking that intro and I'm going to have to play it in front of other things. That was amazing. So thank you for that.
I'm sure that is the tip of the iceberg of your accomplishments. Obviously, we could have made a show out of the things that you've accomplished, but that would have been a 60-minute intro. Getting to research who you are. I mean, I think people like you, it's like you get enamored with what they've done, but I've watched a lot of your content, and who you are is way more impressive to me than what you've done. And what you've done is pretty amazing. I think your philosophy on performance and your philosophies on leadership line up very well with my DNA and what this show is about. And we got a lot of entrepreneurs listening today and a lot of leaders that are trying to do just that, win at their biggest level, but also get their teams to do that. So thanks for being on the show. I know it's going to be a lot of impact for the people listening. Like I said, I did some research, and I'd like to start by talking about the power of vision and the resilience that it takes to see that vision through. And the reason I want to talk about vision and resilience a little bit is because I learned that you read the book Men in Green Faces in grade school.
Yes.
And I'm putting these pieces together as I'm learning about your story and how they apply to leadership. But when you read this book, and it bursts the idea to become a SEAL. However, there's a long road between reading the book and accomplishing the dream and seeing the vision come to reality, and to see this long journey that you had to take from book reading to coming to realization. I learned that you had to do things like pick up the symbols and play the triangle to build your resume. I heard that once in Budge training, you said that you were praying that your heart would explode so that it would be over because there was no way that you were going to quit. And that's a road to travel. And that's a road of resilience. Many people have vision, as you know, Larry, but not everyone sees it through. So tell us a little bit about your story, and what would you say to the leader that's listening that has a dream and a vision, and what it's going to take to get there?
There's so much here that we're going to have to probably break this up into a couple different chunks.
Let's do it.
Funny, the book wasn't the start of my journey. Top Gun was. Wow. So when I was in 3rd grade, I saw Top Gun in the movie theaters. And before I left the theater, I was 100% convinced I was going to be a fighter pilot. And then my dad showed me, I got to watch the movie The Right Stuff, which was all about the astronauts and fighter pilots, test pilots. And the coolest ones went to the Naval Academy. So by 3rd grade, I was convinced that I was going to go to the Naval Academy and be a fighter pilot. And I started working on it in 3rd grade. And so that vision started way before 7th grade. And I was on that path the entire time until I got that book. And the reason I got the book was a friend of mine got me a sweatshirt that said Navy SEALs on it. And he got it simply because it said Navy and it had a cool logo. This would have been the late 80s, early 90s. No one knew what a Navy SEAL was then, like none at all. And I didn't either. So I went to the library to find out what a Navy SEAL was. And that's the book I came across. And by the end of the book, I was convinced fighter pilots were pansies and I needed to be a Navy SEAL. But like the dirty little secret is that, now if you were to see me, I'm 200-pound badass Navy SEAL. I was 5'2" and 107 pounds in high school. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, like in the city in Pittsburgh. And if it had a ball or a team, I was useless at it. And I'm smart, but not smart enough to get good grades without a lot of work. So the combination of being a little dork, not being able to play baseball or football or basketball meant that I wasn't the most popular kid. And needless to say, it was actually the opposite of that. And so I would have been voted least likely to be a Navy SEAL out of high school. Wow. And I was embarrassed to tell anyone. I had a friend that I met in second grade, and we went through grade school and high school together. And it was probably my sophomore, junior year in high school when I actually told him, and he laughed and kind of made fun of me, like, oh yeah, you're going to be a Navy SEAL. And then I didn't tell anyone else till my senior year in high school, when I got into West Point, the Army's school, and the Naval Academy, Annapolis, the Navy school. And at that point, I already had glasses. And so it was obvious I wasn't going to be a pilot. And I went to dinner with my dad, who's a Marine veteran. And I said to him, he was trying to say, like, you're going to go to West Point, you're going to go to Annapolis, Army, Navy, what are you going to do? You can't fly. And that's when I said, Dad, what I really want to do is I want to be a Navy SEAL. And I can still see the shock on his face, like when I said that, but he was, very supportive. He didn't laugh at me like my friend, but it's like, Larry, that's a great, great goal, but I really think probably nuclear submarines is going to be kind of more your speed, better for you. And that was probably the nail in the coffin as to what I was going to do at that point. And so I didn't tell anyone else till my sophomore year in college.
Yeah, it's like, why go through the continued misery?
Exactly.
Larry, do you hear yourself?
Yeah, no belief.
What though? There's somebody listening right now that is going to send this episode to their high schooler that's 120 pounds soaking wet and say, look, anything's possible. But I got to hear the story about you joining the band.
Oh,
this is amazing, because we're talking about this story of like young, scrawny, skinny dude. When you think band, symbols, and triangle / Navy SEAL,
yeah,
it seems like an oxymoron. So tell us about that journey. Like, at some point you said this needs to happen.
So when I got to high school, I'd already researched for a long time. I knew what it took to get to the Naval Academy. And it's the year I got in, it was the third hardest school in the country to get into, behind Harvard Medical School. Like, it is just pure numbers. We had 12,000 applicants for 1,200 spots. And within that, I knew that, yes, I'm smart, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I don't have the best grades in the world. I needed to pad my resume with everything I could to be able to have a chance to get into this school. And I thought, uniform, marching, the band, right? Like, the Navy's going to love that, right? They're going to love that. But I didn't know how to play any instruments. I couldn't read music. I didn't know anything. So I go to the band, and I told the band director I'd do anything. Like, I'll play anything. I don't care. I have no ego. And so he's like, well, you can play the cymbals. Because no one wants to play the cymbals, because everyone in the band's a musician. Like, they have pride. I have no pride. I don't care. I'll play whatever you want. So I played the cymbals. I played the train whistle. I played the triangle. I played all the things that everyone else, real musicians, had too big of an ego to do. I didn't care. I'd play any of them. The other thing is I listened. Like, I was disciplined and listened. I did what I was told. I didn't cause any trouble. So my sophomore year in band, there's the dioceses honors band. So this is throughout the entire diocese. They pick the best musicians from every school, and they come together.
You were killing the triangle.
Well, like, And so he's given out the things, and we have amazing musicians in our band, and they're going, then he calls my name. And I walk up to him at the end, like, did you make a mistake? Like, why would I go to the honors band? Like, I still can't read music. I play the triangle, I play the cymbal. He's like, well, someone has to do that. And I know you're not going to cause any trouble. So I show up, and you've got all these amazing musicians. So, and they were actually happy to have someone that would play whatever they wanted, but I couldn't read music. So they didn't even let me on stage. I had to stand behind the curtain because they had to point to me when it was time to like hit the cymbals. So fast forward, I applied to Naval Academy. During the Naval Academy process, the Naval Academy band director contacts me to try out for the band, because I was, just to be part of this honors band was huge. And I didn't want to tell him, like, I'm horrible. Like, I'm not good at doing this. So I waited until the day I got into the academy. I got there, and they go to have me try out, and like, yeah, you know what? I've decided I'm not going to play, because it would have been an absolute embarrassment to try out for this, but it worked out. So part of it was, I have to say, a big lesson is ego. Like, yes. I had none. I had no ego. I was not there to look good. I was there to do what I needed to do to get where I wanted to go. And I could care less what anyone else had to say about it.
So good, Larry. And that, I mean, we're kind of making fun of it, right? Because it's kind of funny to think of a Navy SEAL that played the triangle at one point. But the whole lesson there for me as a consumer of that story is the adage of, sometimes you have to sacrifice what you want now for what you want most. And, you know, that you saw that as a necessary thing to do to get you to your goal. And not everybody's willing to do that. And there was a lot on that journey to get there. And, you know, so you get to the Naval Academy, at some point you get selected to go into, you know, budge training, which in and of itself is hard to even get a chance to do. But you're in this training. And I remember you telling the story about one specific time that, you know, you're barefoot, you've been up for 3 days, and, you know, you have a buddy there that's bleeding of the feet. And I remember hearing you say in that stretch of budge training that you said, I was kind of praying that my heart would explode so that the pain would stop, because I wasn't going to quit. How do you get to that place? What would you say to that leader that's like, I want it so bad, but I keep letting myself down? What kind of mindset do you get in to keep pushing through the pain, the challenge, the adversity? Most of us are never going to take on bullets or shrapnel or all of that, but there's something in the human spirit that says, I'm pushing through. What was that?
So I want to answer this in two ways, and I want to make sure not to miss the second part of this. So there's and this answers your first question as well, of what enabled me to do this when most others wouldn't be able to stay on the path. So there's a fundamental truth that I believe to be absolutely true, and that's our ability to self-regulate is the primary determiner of the success we'll achieve in life. So I'm very precise with my words, so sometimes it can be dense. I'm going to say that again. Our ability to self-regulate, which it comes in three forms: mental, physical, and emotional. So our ability to regulate mentally, physically, and emotionally is the primary determiner of the success that we'll achieve in life. And that rule is, you can see that anywhere. You know, if the people that can regulate themselves mentally, physically, and emotionally have better lives in every measurable area than those that can't. Yeah. There was a study done, they call it the marshmallow study, where they took kids that were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they gave them the opportunity. Here's a marshmallow. If you can sit here and not eat the marshmallow for 10 minutes, I'll give you another marshmallow. You get 2. Mm-hmm. And so it's hilarious. You should look it up. There's videos of these kids, and they're like tortured trying not to eat this marshmallow. Right. All they did was see the ones that ate the marshmallow and the ones that could wait and have delayed gratification, get 2 marshmallows. They studied these kids for over 50 years. Every measurable part of the child's life, from their health, their marital status, their success in business, All of those were measurably higher in those in the kids that could wait to have 2 marshmallows. So just the ability to regulate at 4 to 5 years old had a direct correspondence to their success in life later in life. Yeah. And that because our ability to self-regulate determines our behavior, and our behavior determines the teams we get to be on, which determines the success we get to have. And so that is a direct thing. And we can go into, well, how do we create self-regulation? What do? We can talk about that later. But that rule I want to get across is what enabled me to do this journey from 3rd grade to the time I was about 30, right, when I finally got medically retired, was 100% based on my ability to self-regulate. There's nothing else that had as much importance.
Because just to get to buds training is tough. To get through it is a whole nother thing. And share with us the numbers, because I've heard you talk about them, but I don't know them off the top of my head. When you went into buds, how many people were there?
Well, so if we go through the numbers all the way through, 12,000 applicants for 1,200 spots at the Naval Academy. So I had to be, that's 1%, right? So that's hard enough as it is there. From there, you've got 1,200 of the most qualified people in the country at the same school. There's about 250 of those 1,200 that wanted to be a Navy SEAL freshman year. 4 years later, that got narrowed down to 54. So you're from 12,000 to 54. Those 54 had to compete for 15 spots. Those 54, you're talking I had to swim against the guy that qualified for the Olympics in 200-meter breaststroke. I had to run against the captain of the track team. I had to compete with my grades against the guy that was a Rhodes Scholar, went off to Oxford after school before he went to the SEAL training. These are the best you got. So from 54 to 15. Now I go to buds. At buds, you have about 2,000 people that were called down to 135 that started my class. So those 135 aren't just off the boat. These are guys that competed to get there. Within the first week, we were down to 121. Within the first 4 weeks, we were down to 60. That means we lost half our class in 4 weeks of training. The 5th week of Hell Week, we lost half our class again. We went from 60 to 30. At the 5th, and that's 6. We're only at the first month of 6 months of training. In the remaining 5 months, that 30 got called down to 11. So it went from 2,000 to 135 to 11 just in buds. And buds is 6 months. You don't even get to be a SEAL for another year and a half after that with more training. Yeah. Of that final year and a half, I think we had about 7 of the original 11 actually become a SEAL. And then at that point, you're 2 years into it. Then you get to be at a team and train for 18 months before you deploy. So it's 3+ years before you even get to the opportunity to do your job.
And you can quit at any time.
You can quit. You can get hurt. You can not meet a standard of performance. You can be late twice and they'll fire you.
Why didn't you quit?
There was no quitting. I went into that knowing I was going to be a Navy SEAL, I was going to be dead. There was nothing in between.
Yeah, which is where I got the quote is and if I'm misquoting you, correct me, but I was kind of praying that my heart would explode because I wasn't quitting, but the pain was so severe. It was something like that.
Yeah, think about the mindset that I'm in that I'm in such misery that I want to die. Yet all I have to do is step out from under the boat and someone's going to be nice to me and it's all over. You don't lose anything if you quit.
Right.
But I was willing to die. I wanted to die so it'd be done.
Yeah.
Yet all I had to do was say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And my life's nice and easy.
So the listener right now is saying probably what I'm saying, which is, it's easy for you, Larry. You're a Navy SEAL. That's why you got there, because you think different, you process different. But to that person that's like, oh yeah, if we all thought that way, we'd all be SEALs. What are the things that everybody can adopt to get from, reading the book or watching the movie to their end goal? Because everybody listening right now, They have a vision. They have a dream. They've lost before. They've failed before. They've quit before. What's going to change to get them back on track and getting to where they want to go?
So remember I said that we had two parts to it, right? Well, the one part was the truth that self-regulation determines your success in life. If you're not experiencing success in life, a primary reason for that is you're not regulating mentally, physically, and emotionally. So one part of this is you have to increase your ability to self-regulate, which we can talk about. If we want to talk about that, I give you a formula for that. So that's one, is you have to increase your self-regulation. This is another one. And this is that story you were talking about the guy with the bleeding feet. So this was about a week before graduation. So this is very end of training. And it was the first time in training where I didn't want to be there. It's as close to thinking about quitting that I got to. Like, I didn't want to quit, but for the first time, I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm tired of this bowl, the games they're playing, all this stuff. And in that moment, I was very self-focused, right? I was focused on my misery, my frustration, my desire to not do this stuff anymore. And in that, I had no power. Like, I was tired, I was exhausted, had no energy. Now, justifiably so, I hadn't slept for 2 days, right? Like, I've been in constant physical activity. I'm getting abused for the 4th hour straight by the instructors. Like, yeah, of course I'm tired. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm running down to the beach and I see Seaman Andrews, who was part of my boat crew, running up the beach. And we had for 4 hours been running up and down this rock road in various stages of undress. And sometimes he didn't have any socks on. Now, he had run enough times with no socks. He had one sock on. And every time he would step,
Larry, you said undressed, meaning naked.
In various stages of that. So the whole game was they had us laying in a cement parking lot. It was a grind. They called it the grinder. It's just a big cement flat. It was 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning in San Clemente Island, which is 75 miles off the coast of California. This was in early April, about 50-degree air temperature, about 50-degree water temperature. They're misting us. So we're laying naked on the cement, spread eagled, and they're misting us with a fire hose. So we'd lay there. All of our clothes are piled in a big pile off to the side. The instructor would say, okay, you've got 2 minutes. Everyone needs to have their socks on and laying back in their spot. So you'd get up, you'd run over, you'd have to find socks, get the socks on, you'd lay down. And you'd say, okay, you've got a minute to get your pants on. If someone didn't have their pants on within the minute, you would have to run 100 yards down a rocky and sandy road to the ocean, jump in the ocean, roll in the stand, run back up the road, strip down naked, lay back on the cement. We had been doing that for 4 hours. So, and what I come to know later, right, as you start to know, this is programmed. Like, right. This is a programmed thing. They're taking, while we're running down to the beach, they're taking out 3 pairs of pants. So it's impossible to get it right. Like, there's no way to win. You don't know that. You just think you're messing it up. Yeah. So running down the beach, and I see him running up. And every time he steps with a foot with no sock on, he's leaving a bloody footprint because they're running up and down the rocks all this time. I remember looking at him and having the thought, wow, he looks more pathetic than I feel right now. And in that, I cared about him. He had been with me from the very beginning as part of my boat crew. As an officer, I'm responsible for him. And he looked more defeated than I felt. And I looked at him, I smile, I high five him. I like give him a smack on his naked butt, go, let's go. And then the next guy, I'm yelling at, giving him a high five and yelling at him. He lights up. And what happened was, as soon as I stopped focusing internal and I started focusing external, and I cared more about my team than I cared about myself, I had instant energy. I had endless power. Mm-hmm. So how could I go from not sleeping for 2 days, 4 hours of torture, absolutely exhausted and tired, to I could have run a marathon at that point.
Wow.
Because the power that I'm getting isn't mine, right? It's the power of the team, of the collective. When I live with honor, when I live with the concerns of the team in front of my own concerns, I have infinite power. So that's one of the best tools, especially as we have leaders and entrepreneurs here. If you're struggling with achieving what you need, you're focusing internally. Be more concerned with your team than you are with yourself, and you'll have endless power.
Powerful, Larry. Powerful. You know, I tell leaders all the time, like, somebody is counting on you to win. Your team is counting on you to win. You're not here just for the corner office and the bigger W-2 and all of this. You are here to serve people. You are here to get people to reach their fullest potential. And running up those rocks, you know, with, you know, your guy bleeding, and you start focusing on him, all of a sudden, not that you're not in pain, but your whole purpose changes. The whole psyche changes. And I think that's a great, I mean, we could talk for hours about that, but I think it's a great nugget to transition with is this isn't really about you as a leader. You get the benefits of it for sure, but it's really about the people that you serve. And for those of you that, you know, as we're talking through this vision and thinking about, you know, the infancy of it to the fruition of it, think about what you're giving up. You know, for Larry, it was like, look, quitting is not the option. And I know that's a cliche bumper sticker type thing to say, but what is the cost of not reaching the goal, and work backwards from that? Larry, I heard you tell the story of showing up to your first major deployment as a young officer, low tenure as an officer, and some of the things that you had to do to add value to the team and drive respect. And this was when you were deployed to the Middle East with you know, the oil sanctions and so forth. This had me thinking about, hearing your story about that had me thinking about the concept of the difference between earned authority and appointed authority. You had the appointed authority, but had the understanding that you had to contribute. And this led to you coming up with the Yatch method, and the rest is history. Can you tell us about that phase of your service? Can you tell us about that environment and what leaders can learn about the value of earned authority versus appointed authority?
Yeah, I think with this, I'll tell a little bit of the story, but I think the bigger value that I can present is the fundamental principles of team performance that are different in that environment than what I found in the civilian world, because this is where this distinction shift is when we work with clients, like this is the one that has the biggest impact. So I want to introduce a couple different concepts. So the first thing is, what's the difference between leadership and management? And this is an important piece. And the other thing is, should we be striving for? Should we be striving to be the best leaders we've ever been, or the best managers? The common understanding of leadership and management is that being a visionary leader at the front, leading your people to a better future, is the place to be. Like, that's what it is, what we want, we strive for. It's George Washington with his foot on the bow of the boat crossing the Hudson. Like, that's what we're trying to do. That is a limited and false view of what leadership actually is. We always think in that mind frame or mindset that management is a necessary evil to put the leader's vision into action. And that's what I find everywhere I go. Now, in the SEALs, it's the opposite. Being the best manager you can be is the goal that we all have. What makes you a manager is positional authority, what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Positional authority comes from having a title. Mm-hmm. If I have a title, I have positional authority, which means I have the requirement to manage. Leadership has nothing to do with positional authority. A manager that leads is not doing their job. So the distinction, and if I look at this from the perspective as an officer, so I show up into a SEAL platoon. I'm the second most senior person in the whole platoon, right? There's a senior officer above me. I have no experience in this. I have little knowledge in this. Mm-hmm. The enlisted SEALs know they're stronger than me and smarter than me, and they have objectively significantly more experience. If I make a bad choice and direct them in the wrong way, they die. That is a hard environment to lead in. They don't leave any room for poor management, poor leadership. If I go in there and try and lead people by directing their actions, I'm going to fail. My job is not to evoke effective action in them directly. My job is to create a space where they can lead me effectively.
Yeah.
So a manager's job is to create, enable, and support leadership at every level. Leadership has nothing to do with positional authority, title, anything. All it has to do with is evoking effective action in another. Leadership at its core is that, right? When I evoke you into effective action, I am leading you.
Yeah.
When you are taking effective action, you're following.
Mm-hmm.
Often leading and following switch back and forth very quickly. So managers create, enable, and support leaders. Leaders evoke effective action, and followers take effective action.
That's good.
In that distinction, most of us are think of it this way. What do you call a manager that is directly evoking action in someone? What do we call them?
A manager that is directly evoking action in somebody.
Yes. We call him a micromanager.
Yeah. Or I was going to say tyrant.
Yeah. Tyrant, micromanager, right? The person with a title that's in there all the time telling you what to do. Do this, do that. I think you should do it this way. That's a micromanager. We don't like them. A manager that is effectively managing has you feel empowered, clear on what you're doing, and safe. Are they actually directing your action? Never. Right. All they're doing is creating the safe place for you to take effective action and evoke effective action around you. Therefore, when we strive to manage at the highest level, all we do is create leaders around us. That's a legacy I want. If I'm the most effective leader, then that means that I was able to direct people around me, and that's limited. I can only really direct 5 to 8 people. So leadership is limited, management is unlimited.
It's so true. And, hearing you tell the story about, arriving, and one, you got to, you're building relationships, you're building respect and trust and all this other stuff. And you were on arguably one of the most impactful missions that there was at the time, and quite frankly, historic. And you had to go in there and build some level of credibility, solve problems. You had limited time to do missions, and you had to come up with a way to pull that mission in half. How did you maybe tell the listener a little bit about what that mission was?
Yep.
And how did you deploy the methodology to get everybody on board to try the new thing?
So the little bit of background, this was the summer before September 11th. So this was right before September 11th in 2001. Saddam was smuggling oil out of Iraq in armored oil vessels. He was doing that to be able to subsidize his oil, to break the embargo, and to have money that's off the books so that he could buy weapons that weren't tracked by the UN or the larger government organizations. Our job was to take those vessels that were illegally smuggling oil out. They would be armored with, they would weld, they'd cut the stairways off, they'd electrify the railings, they'd put barbed wire all around them, they would weld steel plates to all the windows and doors so you couldn't get in. We could only take them when they're in international waters, which is 12 miles off the coast. And there's only 2 small areas where they could do that. So they would travel along the Iranian coast, and we'd have to wait till they got into international waters. Then we'd have to take them. So we had a very short amount of time. Traditional means of doing this was to either board them via the water with caving ladders from our own fast attack boats, or fast roping, which is a 1.5 to 2-inch rope, thick rope that you slide down like a fireman's pole from a helicopter. This is done at night, and they're trying to evade you. We'd get on them, and then we'd have to saw using concrete saws, modified concrete saws, through the steel plating on the doors, or use an exothermic torch to cut a hole so we could walk in. In this particular situation, they got really good at defending. And if we couldn't gain control of them by the time they got into international waters. We'd have to get off. And the Iranian patrol boats, missile boats, are waiting for us to be on one of those ships in their waters, and then they'd blow us up. And we would be wrong, right? We would have created an incident, international incident. So speed was the critical side here of gaining control of the vessel. When we get into this concept, I want to route it back to lead, manage, follow, right? So I am an officer, therefore I have management responsibilities. I can't lead in this because I don't have the experience. So my job was to create an environment where my senior enlisted leaders with experience, they led the mission. It was my job to make sure the planning was clear, so they had clear direction, they had all the resources they needed, and they had a safety net, right, to make sure that they didn't go off the reservation. That's my job. That creates the framework for them to do theirs. Then after that, my job is to follow. So my job was to follow in that, and they gave me the role to look and break things, like literally walk around the ship and try and break things to find other ways in. Like I was literally the lowest. If you looked at all the responsibilities, I'm on the lowest piece of the responsibility. Yet I'm the most senior guy. Goes back to what I talked about earlier with the symbols. I had no ego. Like my ego wasn't, no, I'm in charge. Nope, I'm not in charge. My job is to create the environment for them to be successful and lead me to success. Now in that, I have a history of climbing. And so I climbed to the very top of these vessels. It's about 100 to 150 feet off the deck. We call it the superstructure. And I get to the roof of that and I notice there's some light. And I thought they have to be able to see where they're going. So the weakest part has to be the front. Like there has to be some weak part in the windows. So the rest of the crew is down there trying to get in the doors. I'm on the roof looking over and I see light coming out of the center window. So I called out and said, I think I might be able to get in. So I hang upside down. One of my fellow SEALs holds my belt. I break a window. I throw in some flashbangs. I clear it with my MP5. And then I have to free climb 150 feet off the deck on a vessel that's at sea at night in the pitch black, climb in through a window, and then clear that vessel, the driving area myself, and then open the door from the inside. So very risky. So we did it. Guys got in from the inside. We cleared the vessel. What should have taken 35 to 45 minutes took 8.5 minutes.
Wow.
At that point, we went back. And now this is what's amazing. So I'm the follower, the lowest on the tier doing the grunt work. I had come up with something more effective than anyone had seen at that point. We get back to the carrier. I'm now in charge. So I'm now the leader, leading guys with 20 years of experience in putting together the processes and structures to be able to do this on a regular basis, because I had experience with ropes. No egos. So the guys that were leading, now they're following, I'm leading instantaneously. No one's feelings are hurt, no ego, nothing.
Yeah.
I built out the whole process and procedure. We trained them in doing it. We ended up doing that 15 times total, something like that. We took every vessel that came out of Iraq. We're the only platoon to ever take 2 vessels in the same night. Not one vessel got out of Iraq while we were on watch, and not one vessel has ever gotten out of Iraq since then.
Wow.
My ability to know that my management role was to create a space for their leadership, and my job was to follow. Their ability to see that when I had a better way to do it, I'm now the leader, they're the follower. No one cares. And then I come back and now I have the positional authority to then teach every other SEAL how to do it, and every other SEAL learn how to do it. It is that mechanism of lead, manage, follow in action.
It's so good. It is so good. And, ego can be the downfall of a leader, can be a downfall of the team. And as you were telling that story, the only thing I could think about, Larry, was great leaders don't care who's right. They care what's right. And when we can get that, then we don't care about titles. We care about the mission. And if we could get that right, which, that's a good transition into my last question for you, which is this. What is it that SEALs do well that civilian leaders don't do well that they should be doing? And I'm sure there's novels written on this, but what's that thing that stands out to you?
Oh, there's one.
No, actually, guys, like leaders listening, what is it? What is that thing?
So there's can I give 3 instead of 1, or do you want just 1?
Go for it.
Okay, good. So the transition from naval special operator to I went straight into entrepreneurship. So went straight into building my first company, which was a mistake. Like, I should have not done that. I should have gotten some experience. It would have been a much easier life with that. But I was amazed, and now I think it was my 3rd company that I built. I was amazed that the things that I took for granted, like air, like breathing, were not done in the civilian world, in business organizations. And there's 3 things. So the first one is, this is the one I would have said if you restricted me to 1. The ability to hold responsibility is the biggest problem. In the SEALs. I don't know, 999 out of 1,000. Maybe it's 995 out of 1,000 times. When a SEAL said he was going to do something, he did it. Like, that's it. Like, nothing, no magic. If he said, yes, I commit to doing that, he did it every time. I would say 100% of the time he did it to standard. 10% of the time he did it 20% above standard. And 10% of the time he did it 140% above standard, where you're just like, well, I just asked you to get the inventory and you built software to automate inventory. Like, that's what I mean. Like, just wow. But never would I have ever assumed that they wouldn't do it.
Right.
Now, they would come to renegotiate, like, hey, I can't meet the standard. This is what I need, or I'm not going to get it done. But at no point was I ever surprised. In most of our civilian organizations, if someone does what they say they're going to do 60% of the time, they're the highest performer you've got on the team.
So true.
How about, and then look, shine the light and mirror at yourself. Like, how many times do you, as a leader of, the top of the organization, say you're going to do something and not do it? I bet if you're at 60, you're probably doing good.
You're elite. What
would your organization look like if everyone just did what they said they were going to do 80% of the time?
Man.
Right. So that's the first part. Like,
and real quick on that, Larry, is a thought. That's not a skill. That's a choice.
Well, no, yes and no. Like, it is an absolute skill to know how to accept responsibility that you can hold and to pass responsibility so someone else can hold it. That's skill. If you don't have those skills of accepting and passing, you are going to be an irresponsible person. And that's where organizations get it wrong. That's one of the core things we teach every organization, is how to hold, pass, and accept responsibility. That's where I start. And to me, it's like, I had to get over the fact that I thought it was so silly that I have to teach adults how to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. That's breathing. The second one is, as soon as in the SEALs, I never had to worry about someone's feelings being hurt when I told them what they could do better. Like, they loved it. And so the ability to give and receive and implement, 3 parts: give, receive, and implement feedback. Like, that was just, again, that was like breathing. Like, a SEAL would accept a responsibility, he would do it, and then I'd give him feedback on how to do it better, or someone else on the team would. And then he would do it better the next time. Like, I couldn't comprehend in civilian organizations. Like, I say, okay, well, there's how you can do this better. And someone cries. I didn't get it. So holding, accepting, and passing responsibility leads to the need to be able to give, receive, and implement feedback. And then this is the other one that just, I don't get. No one plans. Like, in a civilian organization, no one plans. They do strategic planning, if they're lucky, once a year. And then everything after that is, I'll figure it out.
Free for all.
If we were doing a training in the US and we were going to go get Mexican food after the training, we do a planning session on how to go get Mexican food. And these are some of the smartest, most capable special operations in the world. We still talked about it. What's our desired end state? How are we going to get it done? What problems could show up? How do we solve those ahead of time? And then we debrief it. Like, at the restaurant, did everything go good? Yeah, good. And so if you have special operators that would plan to go get Mexican food after a training operation, you can only imagine how we plan for an actual mission. Right. I go into organizations, they don't plan. Like they have the same problem, shows up 100 times, and they never do anything about it. Or they pick, like they implement traction, they pick rocks for the quarter and they give the rock to their manager. The manager says yes, and they do no planning. And they're surprised when it doesn't come to fruition. So those are the three things. And the ability to hold responsibility, the ability to receive feedback, and you need to plan outside of once a year.
Yeah. Yeah. These sound like, why doesn't everybody do it? And if you're listening, you're saying the same thing, is like, yeah, why don't we do that? Why do I get so bent out of shape when somebody gives me feedback? Why don't I sit and plan more? I just came back from Atlanta 4 days and we did a session on strategic thinking. Yep. And it's like, nobody's doing this. We get running so fast, but those are absolutely profound. So listener, take inventory of that. What's your scorecard look like on those three things that Larry talked about? I bet there's some opportunity for all of us.
You'll love this too, like, because we're in a similar business, right? And one of my favorites is, I don't have time.
Right.
Like, wait a minute here. I don't have time. I don't have capacity. That's the world screaming at you that you need to learn something. You need to lead better. You need to plan better. And what do we do when we don't have time? We don't plan, we don't lead because we do it ourselves.
Because we don't have time to plan.
We don't learn. I don't have time to learn from someone. Like, wait a minute. The only person that doesn't need to learn, lead, or plan better is the person that has all the time in the world.
Yeah. It's like telling the cardiologist that says you're 90% blocked. You're like, no problem. I'll start running more.
Yeah.
Too late. It's too late, right?
Or I know better yet. I don't have the lungs or the blood flow to run. That's what you're saying. Yes, that's why. Yeah. Right. You need to run and you'd have blood flow.
An ounce of prevention. So, hey, if you're open to it, let's close this out with a speed round. You down for that, Larry?
Sure.
Here we go. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, I'd have to go with Jesus. I mean, I think that would be a damn good dinner.
That would be
a lot of questions. A lot of questions for God there on that one. So yeah, I'm going to go with that one.
I feel you there. I feel you. If you had a billboard that you could rent for a day that everybody in the world could see, what would it say?
Your success in life depends 100% on your ability to team.
Love it. Love it. What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? So this won't be as quick. What enabled me to do what I did as a SEAL was a complete psychological break and physiological break. So I did not feel anything emotionally or physically. I had to do that to do the decisions that I have. So I'm just now part of my healing process, which is 14 years of healing post-traumatic stress and all the like, has been getting back to being able to feel anything, any emotions. And I experienced fear for the first time in my body about a year ago, where I was like, oh, I don't feel very good. And I talked to one of my coaches, like, oh, Larry, that's what it feels like to be scared. I'm like, oh, never knew that before. So The short answer is like, not much. Like there isn't, I don't live in fears, but that's mostly because I'm broken, not because I'm courageous.
Wow. That's profound though. It is profound. How about this one? What book has had the biggest impact on your life?
Men with Green Faces. If we were to look at results, like that one really changed my entire path of life.
I thought that might be the one you'd pick. How about your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time? I have to plead the fifth on that one.
There's a lot.
I got nothing for you.
Well, then we'll finish it with a fun one.
Okay.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or talk to animals?
I'm going with the animals.
There we go.
Yeah, I generally like staying away from people. So I'd be really happy if I could converse with the animals and not talk to any humans.
Man, I would pay a lot of money to know what my dog is really thinking. I just know it's amazing. I know it is. Hey, before we shut down, tell us about Tell us about your company, SEAL Team Leaders, as well as your book, How Leadership Actually Works. And I believe you have some more stuff in the works as well. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. First and foremost, the book I'm really excited about. I'm really proud about. So How Leadership Actually Works is a consolidation of the last 15 years of consulting that we've done. And it takes the fundamentals of high performance, both as an individual and as an organization, and lays it out in hardcore detail. On one hand, I feel excited for people and sorry for people as well that buy it, based on the fact that it's dense. Like it is an entertaining but hard read. So strap in when you get this book. Being able to reach more people at a much lower cost is what we're so excited about, of being able to get that done.
And when's that one released?
May 10th. So
wow.
2 weeks, or by the time this goes live, it'll probably be live. So you go to How Leadership Actually Works is the website as well. And you would be doing, instead of saying thank you to me as a veteran, go buy the book and leave a review. And that'll be the biggest thank you that you can give me for what I've done for the country.
Tell us that website again.
HowLeadershipActuallyWorks.com.
Well, we will have that in the show notes. And you can get that in the show notes. You can get that via my website. So the links will all already be there. No need to write anything. We'll get that for you.
Perfect.
And our team is going to contribute to that too, as well, Larry. We'll give out some giveaways on the book.
Appreciate that'd be sweet.
That. Yeah.
I'll sign some for you and send them to you.
Let's do it.
The second thing, business. So SEAL Team Leaders is our main business name. And what we do is focused around coordination of action. So we believe that the lifeblood of any organization is the ability to coordinate action between the team and the clients, between members of the team, between departments on a team, and between leadership and the team. And we found that every business problem you have is a failure to coordinate action at a high level, one of those four areas. And so our primary offer is in supporting that in organizations, either through we place what we refer to as a coordination of action officer in the company in a real-time virtual setup, where now every coordination of action issue runs through them. And then eventually we train an internal person to hold that responsibility and support the companies past that. So it's like, think of a company implements traction, right? Then EOS, they get it in, but a department just isn't doing it, or the rocks are constantly not being met. Our job is to be able to ensure that gets done. It's everything from behavior to planning to leadership development and education.
There's a big need for it as well. We'll also have the link to that in the show notes. So check that out. I mean, the three things Larry talked about earlier is exactly what his team is doing to help organizations transform. And looking at his website myself and some of the work he's done, I mean, he's helped a lot of companies, many big brands as well. So be sure to check it out. Well, Larry, listen, thanks so much for investing time to be on the show. Thank you for your service to this great country that we live in, as well as your service to leaders even today. Listener, be sure to get the show notes to this episode and every episode. Get these mailed to your inbox each and every week. The show notes are ready for you to engage. They're there with thought-provoking questions. They have activities for you that you can go through by yourself or with your team. Sign up for the show notes by going to jeffhancher.com and registering for that. Until next time, keep making big impact, keep serving others, and never forget, you all have been set up to be champions in this life.